Some of us have been slightly busy.
Yeah, anyone been up to much? I've not done much really.
No, you haven't, have you?
No, it didn't.
Nah, I think Harrison's been the most busy out of us three, to be fair.
Oh,
Yeah,
here
I
we
guess
go.
so.
Daily abuse about jobs.
Hey,
Uh,
listen, my job's over now. I officially got my P45 through, so that means I'm no longer employed. Ah, what a shame. Anyway,
I
shall we
like
do,
it.
shall we do this? Hello and welcome along to TCM Howzat. We are back. Now, I know I said we'd be back throughout the summer, but somehow we've ended up in August. Has anyone been up to much? I've not been up to much. I'm joined by the same two people that I was back then, Rob Rush and Harrison Burridge, and it is great to see them. We have so much to talk about because the English summer has just been going at a million miles per hour, so I'm not really sure where to start. I'll start with a hello. Rob, Harrison, how are you? It's good to have you back. Is it good to be back?
Time will tell.
Time will tell. Wow, a resounding,
I,
a
I,
resounding.
I, I concur with the statement. I concur with
Okay,
that
brilliant.
statement.
Well, I'm just going to brush past that. I've missed being rinsed by you two. And we're going to start with our moments of the summer. I thought it'd be a nice way to, bring everyone up to speed by starting with our moments of the summer so far. So, Harrison, to you, there's been so much cricket. I know you were trying to think about what's actually happened this summer before this recording, but what moment sticks out to you?
There's been a few. Obviously, we've just started the second test series for the men. The first one had a few notable performances from newcomers. Jimmy Anderson farewell, I think may well be top of one of your guys' lists, but I was going to go slightly different. I think the moment when England women finished with an unbeaten summer. Just a bit more of a niche one, but for them to have kind of complete that milestone after the Ashes last year, they've built on it again with more fantastic crowds, and which is again for the women's side of things has carried over into the 100. I think for them to have that platform going into they got what, the T20 World Cup, which now is in UAE coming up in a few months. It's a perfect way for them to sign off from their home country.
An unbeaten summer which finished in July, but that's a whole nother issue. Rob, your moment of the summer, please.
Oh God, we're going there already. Not even been back 5 minutes. We're already going there.
So far, there's still loads of cricket, so far.
I'm torn between two, and I'm going to go with the one that you're not going to go for because you, being a Lancashire fan, we both know exactly what you're going for. I'm going to go for Gus Atkinson's debut series. Always the questions over after Stuart Broad retired, and then Jimmy being gently persuaded to potentially not play international cricket anymore. There's always that question. Chris Wokes, Mark Wood, obviously they're now the elder statesmen, but who are these people coming in behind them? Gus Atkinson had done well for Surrey in both red and white ball, but there are always those questions when someone first steps into the test arena of how are they going to deal with the pressure, how are they going to deal with just better quality, because this is test match cricket, doesn't get any better than this. And Gus Atkinson just calmly responds. 22 wickets, player of the series, opening the bowling in his second test match after never really doing it for Surrey. It's just he kind of just took to it like a duck to water, really. So, yeah, it gives England fans a lot of hope for the future that Gus Atkinson was able to just literally just walk into that test side and go, "Yeah, I'm here now, guys. Thanks, Stuart, thanks, Jimmy, for leading the way, but it's my show now. I'm going to take over."
And he'd taken over, he has. Now, listen, my moment of the summer so far, I think you both have already hinted towards it. It's got to be Jimmy Anderson.
Anyone want to place any bets? Anyone want to
Yeah.
place any bets?
Jimmy Anderson's retirement. I mean, it was a sad moment. I did feel he was hard done because the way he was bowling in that first test match, I still felt he had at least the series in him. But I can understand why they did it in the end. And there was a little homecoming thing for him yesterday at Emirates Old Trafford. And, we love Jimmy and we're hoping maybe he's going to play in a T20 league. I saw that somewhere. But who knows? That would be quite the turn of events. But that moment at Lord's where he retired and he was visibly emotional and, the greatest of all time coming down, coming to an end. And yeah, I think that's where I'd start, and I don't want to talk about it too much because I get emotional. I'll get all, it makes me feel fuzzy and warm inside. So I'm going to move on, is what I'm going to do. And we are going to stick with Test match cricket, and we're going to talk about England versus Sri Lanka. Day one got underway yesterday at Emirates Old Trafford. I was lucky enough to be there on the coldest day of Test match cricket I have ever been to. My God, it was freezing. But what else would you expect from Manchester in August? Now, Harrison, it's been a new look side for this, obviously, with Stokes' injury. Pope has come in to captain. What did you make of his captaincy yesterday? Because to me, it felt like he got straight into the role and it wasn't really much different.
Yeah, I mean, you can't pick too many faults with it when you bowl a side out for 230 after they've decided what they want to do on the first day of a test match. Albeit, yeah, overhead and pitch conditions are definitely in England's favour with the attack they've got at their disposal. But you still got to kind of execute it. And I mean, any captain would love having the opposition 6-3 after losing the toss. And I think that probably the perfect way for him to ease into the role and allow him to grow into it for the rest of the day because there were a couple of partnerships and you expect that. And then there was also the trepidation of you couldn't bowl fast bowlers. So did he stick on or do you not? And fair play, they stuck on because they know, as we're seeing now, as we're recording, it's raining, unsurprisingly, in Manchester. So they needed that time out there to bowl them out last night and they got a bit of batting done. But I think I remember there's one section Nasser Hussain highlighted a little bit of captaincy when Rafa Naika was on debut batting well, but could have got a short leg in round the corner, someone in round the corner on the back pad. But apart from that, I can't really lay any fault at Pope's door on his opening day.
Yeah, and it was a good opening day. The weirdest day of Test match cricket I've ever seen, given the light and how cold it was at Old Trafford, and it's still grim 20 miles down the road. So I'm not sure how how much cricket we'll be getting today, at least. But Rob Harrison alluded to that good start for England and the bowling attack. Wokes, Atkinson, Wood. I mean, with Anderson and Broad going, there was going to be this big, chasm in the England side. And it feels like, hang on a minute, this is a reset. And I think they've done quite well, haven't they?
Well, it helps when your reset includes two bowlers in Wokes and Wood that have played a lot of international cricket. It's kind of as it was with Anderson and Broad. They're the stars, they're the leaders. They get the new ball, they get the preference events and everything, and you kind of fit in around them. And this is now kind of it's not their bowling attack because, as I alluded to, Gus Atkinson's kind of said, "Follow me, lads. I've got this." But it certainly helps. Atkinson when he can turn to Wokes and Wood to help lead him. Matthew Potts has come in for this first test. You've got Ollie Stone who's now back in the picture. These guys have played international cricket, so it's for someone like Atkinson to come in. It's not maybe as daunting as it would be as if it was a complete reset and you're going with guys who have played less than 10 test matches, when you've got Wokes and Wood who have played probably over 120, 130 international matches each, that experience is still there. Obviously, they haven't got the wickets that back up Broad Anderson, but the experience is still there. So, yeah, it has been a relatively smooth transition for now. Obviously, there are sterner challenges to come in the fact we're going to go away to Pakistan and New Zealand. Chris Wokes' away record needs no introduction as to how shocking it is. Mark Woods, as much as his prowess in white ball bowling is, he now seems to be a fixture in the red ball side, and we know he can break down at any point. So that's going to be something that they need to think about. Ben Stokes is now in the race against time to be fit. What does that bowling attack look like if you say Chris Wokes doesn't go? You're looking at Mark Wood and Gus Atkinson. Yes, they're the two guaranteed. You probably want to go a little bit more spin heavy, so maybe someone to partner Shoaib Bashir. Who else do you want to fill out that bowling attack then? Do you, after Jack Leach has been back to the hills and then dropped, do you want to say, hey, Jack, do you want to come back? Or do you go for another spin option? Do you go for a different spin option that looks ahead to Australia, like we know they are doing? Do Ollie Stone, Matthew Potts, do these guys get goes in Pakistan and New Zealand? Obviously, Jofra Archer's Red Bull return isn't until next year, but he's someone you're going to have to now start to factor back in, which is great. It's nice to have these headaches. You'd love to have them. But yeah, overall, this bowling attack, special note to Shoaib Bashir as well. I know we've waxed lyric about the seamers, but Shoaib Bashir is a guy who had to go out on loan to Worcestershire this year to go get game time, has walked, like Atkinson, walked into Test match arena and gone, Yeah, lads, this sole frontline spinner is easy. I don't know what he's talking about, and he's making it look easy at least. So, yeah, it's a very pleasant introduction to Test cricket for those guys in their new roles.
Yeah, and I have to say, I think I was talking with my dad about this with Shah Bashir. He's sort of flown under the radar a little bit, but that's almost a good thing because we haven't noticed that this new young spinner has come into the side. And one other person I want to touch on just before we move on to Sri Lanka is Jamie Smith behind the wickets because he again I feel is someone who's done really quite well but almost gone under the radar because we're not talking about him because there's not been the mistakes, there's not been the discourse. Harrison, what have you made of him and the way that he's just come into the side and just made it look easy and almost put the folks Bairstow debate to bed?
Well, you referenced it there. Who's another player, like so many who come into this kind of baseball era of late that come in with a lot of noise behind them. And why did they choose him? Why didn't they choose someone else in his place? And he's put that to one side emphatically. Fair to say, he's come close to a Test 100 in one of his innings, but he's dispelled kind of the issue they had before with folks are batting with the tail on a couple of occasions and got England up to scores that mattered in that West Indies series and put them away. And his glove work, I think, for the most part, from memory, has been near faultless as well, which was, I think, a lot of people's concern because folks obviously does that job on the main basis when they both play for Surrey. But again, it's another selection you look at um, from England, and you're like, okay, you've ticked a box there. He's doing well early on. Again, like so many, it's can you continue that, especially when you start going away from home, as we will see in the coming months.
Let's talk about Sri Lanka then, because there was a point, I have to say, at the afternoon session, it was dull, it was gloomy, it was drizzly. I thought, that's it. I looked at the weather forecast, I thought we weren't getting any more cricket. And then we did get more cricket, and Sri Lanka fought back in quite a fashion with their number nine, Nihal Ratnaik, getting 72, I think it was. I mean, what a fight back that is, Rob. They really made a fight of it. They didn't give up because I could see the comments on Twitter after they were, six down, I think, at lunchtime or something like that, saying, "Oh, this is the death of Test cricket. This is awful, etc., etc., etc." But they really showed good fight and they came back and they've brought themselves back into this match, haven't they, Rob?
This is why Test cricket is the pinnacle. You know, you can have a bad session, but you can have a bad morning session. You can have a below average afternoon session, but that evening session and those lower order runs have got them to a competitive score. And this is again why I say Test cricket. You can fight back. You can make up for this. You can make up for poor starts later on if the team is able to apply themselves. Um, it's kind of, as you say, the conditions weren't exactly favourable to them either. Kind of the conditions screamed you want to be out there with the ball. Were there some interesting decisions? Yes, Angelo Matthews probably needs to learn where his off stump is and learn, that there are two types of leave, and his was definitely the wrong one yesterday. Um, but Danjaya De Silva stood up in that middle order, was very good, kind of as he has to be. He's one of the household names in that Sri Lanka 11. I do think that it exposed where the lack of funding and the lack of how do I put this correctly? Like the lack of fixtures for other nations in Test cricket. That morning and afternoon session, I think definitely exposed that because, you know, obviously well documented England, India, Australia kind of dominate the Test calendar. Everyone else kind of picks up the scraps a little bit and plays where they can, but obviously have other things on their agenda. Sri Lanka have a T10 league that they're trying to focus on as well as the Lanka T20 league that they have. New Zealand have got their domestic season, their own things. South Africa have got their own successful domestic T20 league. So I think that morning and afternoon session kind of exposed where we have a team in England that plays 10 to 12 tests a year, and Sri Lanka who maybe only play 4 to 5, and it doesn't help when the bigger nations don't play the smaller nations as much. That's what we're not saying anything new here. This is stuff that we all know, and the ones who know about cricket want to see change. But unfortunately, just the money isn't there for a country like Sri Lanka at the minute to make red ball cricket a priority. So Yeah, it was a very good fight back. If I obviously I don't know specifically a lot about the Sri Lanka team, I'd highly recommend people go listen to Murali Pods. They are Sri Lankan cricket specialists. Go listen to them. They'll be able to give you the more in-depth stuff. I know Mark and I think it's Dominic Brooks. They're at the Test match for all 5 days. So those guys, they've been on the press conferences. They know about the team. They know about the structure. They know a lot more. So I'd highly recommend go listening to them if you want a more detailed breakdown on how Sri Lankan cricket works at the minute.
I feel like we've got to get Mark on this at some point in this series. I've been saying that for years, but I feel like we do. Finally, Harrison, I don't know. I think we all saw that one ball on the Old Trafford pitch yesterday that stayed so low that it could have been a pitch in the subcontinent in the middle of our winter in the darkest depths. And if that was on an India tour, an England tour of India, then I think the uproar would have been ridiculous. But then the pitch was really weird, I thought. So I just wanted to get your reflections, Harrison, on the pitch itself, on how you think it'll play, and also on the weather at Old Trafford. How much is that going to become a factor in what we're going to see over the next couple of days?
Well, I've kind of just been looking at the BBC Sport Live kind of commentary page as we've been doing this now. And there's a big old rant going on about rain in Manchester from people texting in, but others are reverting it back at them. But in general, apparently the forecast after today might be quite clear. I'm not going to put my name to that as definite and be blamed for when this inevitably is rained out come Sunday or whenever day 5 is. But it's an interesting one because you always want a pitch that has someone in it on the first morning. And I think there was definitely that, and just all the overhead conditions, and then the dampness probably doesn't help because it will keep that moisture in that surface and keep the bowlers happy. And I think, as you're saying, if it's still quite cold and grim up there today, it's not going to be much different going forward into the weekend and the latter stage of the Test match. The advantage England have is they aren't too far behind the game. It's 214 behind with 10 wickets. We know how quickly they can score. That's probably 2 sessions work if that for them at their best, so they can easily move the game forward for this rain around. But I think Old Trafford pitches normally play well. They'll be up and down as it goes on, and I think Sri Lanka will probably hope and spin comes into it a bit. Because they had that Prabhath JS Surya, who is quite a handy left arm spinner who bowled a bit last night, and he could in a fourth innings if he can have a little chase could be key to Sri Lanka.
Indeed, we will wait to see how that plays out. I'd just like to say as well on the Manchester weather, and it leads me quite nicely into my next section, which is about the 100, because obviously I've been part of that. But I'd like to say about the Manchester weather, 4 games we had at Emirates Old Trafford. It was bright sunshine. It was bright sunshine. So this whole Manchester, it always rains, is a myth. And I can't say enough how much I disagree with you, Rob.
There was you bowled out for 90 and it's game over within 50 balls of the run chase or whatever, which I think may have happened to the originals once, which I definitely didn't say on purpose.
No, because Surrey just nick everyone's best players to enable they can repeat. Essex fans will, strike resonance with that.
Anyway, on the 100, as some people will know, I was a rising host this year, which meant I was part of the in-venue team at Emirates Old Trafford for the Manchester Originals. The Manchester Originals were shocking at cricket this year, but I think I cursed them. And I just wanted to take a moment really to put some reflections on my personal experience within the tournament this year, which is that there's a lot of noise outside the tournament, but inside the tournament and inside the stadium, I have to say the energy was infectious. Speaking to kids, speaking to families, I know it's so cliche, because county fans are probably sick to death of hearing it's for family, it's for kids, and I understand that because it has been hammered. But in that, I can't describe how many families and kids there actually were that I was speaking to on the big screen, that I was talking to, that I was getting to know, and the energy is just different to lots of other cricket matches, and it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, and I understand that, and I understand it's caused divisiveness, but really, I mean, it was just the best summer ever from my perspective. And, it was really fun to be a part of. And I've learned so much. And opportunities like that don't come up in a lot. So I just had to take it and do it. And if you've seen anything on our TikTok or on Twitter, you'll know that I had literally the best time, which culminated in the final on Sunday. So yeah, enough from me. Harrison, as a spectator, what did you make of this season of the 100 and where does it go from here? Because there's so much chat about its future.
Well, I think as we sit here now, kind of what we're nearly a week on from that final, it is so much about the future and what they do because we know they're bringing in the investment. There's rumors that the names could change, which then throws up a whole nother kind of issue in what have the last 4 years been built up to be, and etc., and how the deals are done with the counties and the other counties that aren't the other 10 that aren't associated with teams. There's so many intangibles and questions as we kind of sit here now, but I don't. There's no need to kind of focus on them too much. I think the action on the field it was mixed. I think it's fair to say throughout. If I kind of start with the men's tournament, it struggled in the early week, but then picked up when the England Test players became available and a few more of the bigger names from the American League flew over, and there was a couple of real notable performances and the close games that everyone seems to judge a lot of the tournament by became more of a regular occurrence than the first week where there was the you bowled out for 90 and it's game over within 50 balls of the run chase or whatever, which I think may have happened to the originals once, which I definitely didn't say on purpose. Um, but then you also do have the women's side of things, which continues to flourish. They had what I think they had a record crowd at 7 of the 8 grounds throughout the tournament, and there was a record one for the final itself on Sunday. So in that half of the tournament, you can't fault it, and I think it's very important for any discussion, whether it's us here, the ECB, or fans, or whatever, you include that kind of half of the tournament in there because they are joined up, whether you like it or not, and it may be coming to a stage when they could be split. The women's game is in some areas always able to stand on its own, but I not to kind of be too critical of the grounds kind of in the north, but it was noticeable when you had grounds games at Headingley and Old Trafford compared to maybe the Oval and the Rose Bowl, there wasn't the same numbers in crowds for the women's games. So that maybe because of the long-term treatment of the ECB towards where they play the women internationals and a lot of them in the south. But again, that's another rabbit hole. There's no point going down today. But I think there's one bit that will always stick with me, at least from the men's game. It was a late group game. Trent Rockets were chasing. I've forgotten against who, but it was Tom Alsop and Rothman Power in the middle, and they pulled the game back from nowhere and won it. And the crowd were all bought into it, and I think that was something that was felt across venues. So I think whatever happens next, needs to be just need to remember what they've done and built in the last 4 years, and put that into their consideration for whatever happens, whatever that is.
Yeah, nicely summed up from you there, Harrison. And obviously, the Oval Invincibles won the men's final in quite a battering. Saki Mahmood, great to see him back doing things. Love that man. Got 3 wickets in that, and then the London Spirit won in a very close women's match at the final. Rob, I'm gonna come to you for the final word on this. Just today, and are you smiling already? I don't know whether I want to.
Oh.
Just for you, what have you made of the 100 this year? Because it is really like Marmite. Me and Harrison absolutely love it. I know you're a little bit more skeptical. Where do you stand on it going into its fifth season next year? Sorry.
I would like to pick up on Harrison's point of the women's game being able to stand on its own. And to be honest, I feel as if you could probably, again, as unpopular as to some people it would be, the women's game could probably stand, the women's 100 could probably stand on its own. Um, Now, I think obviously the 100 you have to split up into so many different categories. The first one is obviously being women's and men's. Women's game, you have the bet. You've got Deepti Sharma from India, so that brings in that whole entire audience. You've got so many of these amazing women players coming over and playing. Heather Knight spoke about it. It's like we are now on a whole different level, and it's great. I think it was a record crowd at the eliminators. It was a record crowd at the final. You're reaching numbers of like 16, 17,000, which before the 100 kind of wasn't really accessible or thought of for women's cricket in this country. So I will give the 100 its credit for there. But, right at the start, this men's side of the tournament, you have Mohammed Amir, I think it was, who played one game and left. Northern Superchargers had Poran come in and play. his luggage didn't turn up. He had to get a borrowed bat from Phil Salt at the originals, get it Ubered to him to play the first game with a borrowed bat, and he didn't obviously have any wicket keeping gear. Now that's not entirely his fault. Airlines lose things, but does that not speak to how scrambled the calendar is? That players are having to source replacements on the day, and like all this sort of stuff. How many times this men's 100 campaign, there were so many games that were not close, and you want close games or to drag crowds in, and that's not really what happened at the start of the tournament. So you already when you're divisive as it is, and then you've got blowout games, that's not going to help drag your numbers up. There was a fall in attendance in the north compared to the south. Spirit and Invincibles, I think, in the men's side of things, or overall attendances, made up near half of the overall attendances, which obviously is expected. London has the better transport links; everyone can kind of get in, but it doesn't really say a lot for ECB. We want to grow the game. Yeah, your ticket sales and attendances went down from last year compared to this year, if the report that I'm trying to remember is correct. I'm trying to search up on BBC. As Harrison mentioned, you now have the ECB now selling this off. And we've already seen Hampshire have been bought by an IPL team. IPL owners are now going to be able to invest and be able to, as Harrison mentioned, potentially change the teams, change salaries, everything. I know that in the Northeast there is potential for a completely different type of investment to come in for Durham to have a franchise potentially from 2026 onwards, compared to 2027 or 2028 when the Sky deal runs out. But where does that leave the other counties? Where does that leave the other counties that, that Durham franchise would bring a whole thing, because then you have to move everyone that's associated with Durham. How do you deal with that? You've got all of the Durham players are currently at the Superchargers. So that would involve you having to find new players for Superchargers, bring the Durham players back. It's just so divisive, and I just don't think it's really working. And as I've alluded to, the games where you've got players flying in for one game, then flying back off to go play in America. The ECB are trying to flagship the 100 as this amazing format that's going to attract all the best players to play for the entirety of the tournament. You have players rocking up on one game deals saying, "Yeah, I'll bowl 20 balls. No, I'm off. See you later." You've got players, obviously injuries and stuff happen, but Keaton Jennings starting off the Metro Bank One Day Cup for Lancashire and then leaving to go play for London Spirit. Several players having to jet in as reserves for a game potentially where they miss One Day Cup for their county when they weren't going to be picked up for the 100. Like I said, this is on the men's side of things. Women's side of things, I don't think could have gone any better, really. It was amazing, fantastic. Can't speak highly enough for what it's done for the women's game. But the men's side of things, it's just not what it needs to be. And now we're about to go into a period of change. It was already unsettled. It's about to be even more unsettled with this period of change coming in. No one knows what's going to happen. And ultimately, this is going to have a bigger knock-on effect than just bidding for 100 franchises. This is going to go into the county game, and this is going to create a load more problems.
And you're speaking about the county game there. I want to move on to the county game, and I can't say enough how much I disagree with you, Rob. But that's for another day, isn't it? So let's move on to talk about something unifying us, which is county cricket, because we're all county cricket fans, and there's so much to catch up on. We're gonna start at the final of the One Day Cup, which is taking place at Trent Bridge, I believe, in September. That has been finalised as Glamorgan versus Somerset Harrison.
It's
taken me 27 minutes. It's taken me 27. And there I go.
Some proper white ball cricket. Thank God.
Okay, Rob, steady on.
Here we go. Buckle up.
Harrison, Glamorgan versus Somerset. I want to particularly speak about Somerset because they've had a depleted squad due to the 100, missing something like 11 players, and they've got themselves into a final. That's pretty good, isn't it?
Yep, and I think that's one of the positives of the way the schedule works these days is you get teams. Admittedly, I think you got the other end of the spectrum is Surrey, who lose, I don't know, it's over 15 players. It's almost they never have a chance in the One Day Cup. But Somerset this year have shown, although they've missed basically a full 11 of players, they've got players that have come through their academy system, and obviously Archie Vaughan He's been kind of having his breakout summer. Lewis Goldsworthy's, after a few loans at Leicestershire, he came back and scored 100 against Leicestershire for Somerset in the semi-final, which is little bit of fun for the way the county circuit works. But he goes to show what can be done and the importance kind of the One Day Cup in its current form to counties and how they can use it to give more players experience, which then in turn could give them a career in the game. They get an opportunity they may not have. Always comes to mind that Hampshire consistently have made the knockout stages in the last 3 years, and they again lose close to 10, if not above 10 on some years of players. We won't talk about their quarter final this year, but I think that's the real positive is seeing the youngsters who don't play much get that opportunity. And I think you may well pick up on it, but Lancashire today, they've got Rocky Flintoff and Josh Boyd and a couple of names I saw on their team sheet who both got those opportunities in the One Day Cup. And because of other unavailabilities, other injuries or whatever, they're playing in the county championship today. And I think that's the one real positive I can take from the One Day Cup. And Somerset have epitomised that this year.
Yeah, let's move. We've only got about 5 minutes left, which always happens, doesn't it? But let's move on to the county championship, which is back today. Lots of games going on across, but Surrey are the ones to beat in Division 1, as per usual. Same old story. Rob, can anyone catch them?
No, because Surrey just nick everyone's best players to enable they can repeat. Essex fans will, strike resonance with that. I mean, if we're going to be serious, it's a testament to how good the facilities are, how good the squad is, how good the club is ran up that they're able to attract these best players away from other counties. But at the same time, give it a break. If you truly believe that you have the best squad and everything, come up through the academy. No, it's great that we've got Sam Curran playing today after he's not really been seen in a white shirt, playing red ball cricket for a while. He's now back after starring in the 100. It's good to get these stories, but as a county fan, as a fan of a different county, it's very difficult to accept Surrey just kind of steamrolling their way to Division 1 every year. I'm more interested in Division 2 promotion race. That is a very tight affair. You've got Gloucestershire who are trying to go up. You've got, I think, Leicestershire in that fight as well. The top of Division 2 is looking particularly spicy. Division 1, also the bottom half is very close together. Bar Kent, I think, who are 30 points adrift at the bottom of Div 1. From ninth to 5th or 6th in Division 1 is only covered by 12 or so points, which is a win and a loss, effectively, with bonus points. So, there's a lot to play for at the bottom and top of Division 1 and 2.
Nicely, succinctly done, Rob Rush. That was awesome because you've got through all my questions, which means we have time to just finally move on to the quarterfinals of the Vitality Blast, which are being played, I believe, in 10 days' time.
2nd, 3rd of September.
Yeah, there we
2nd, 3rd,
go.
4th.
Which is about 10 days' time. And there's no Hampshire in there. But they are they are Sussex versus Lanks, Surrey versus Durham, Northants versus I can't read my own hand writing, but I don't know.
There's the second mess up of the episode.
Yeah, it's also professional. Give me back I need a production team back. And then Bears versus Gloucestershire. Harrison, pick of the quarterfinals. What would it be and why?
Well, you have just annoyed half of the West Country in forgetting Somerset and not being
Oh,
able
was
to
it Somerset?
read their name. But I think
That's gone well.
there's a few, and naturally when you get to quarterfinals, you've got the best team. Sussex Lancs stands out. I think Sussex been very good across formats this year. They're top of Division 2, but I think probably favourites to go up as champions at the moment in that form of the game. But then I'm kind of looking at the one on the Friday night, Birmingham and Gloucestershire. Gloucestershire got in thanks to Hampshire's work against Essex. So the least they can do is repay the favour a bit against Birmingham. But I think there's a bit of a kind of a localish feel to that one compared to the others, obviously being the north-south split, and Birmingham are a side who've not had much success in knockout fixtures in any format over the last few years. And Gloucestershire, as Rob alluded to, they are side on the up across formats as well. They're looking to challenge on all fronts, and I think that one just could be a little tasty if Gloucestershire manage to dismiss the key Birmingham players, because I imagine they're going to have Mo and Ali at the top of the order, and Dan Mousey might be playing as well, depending on white ball commitments for England as well.
So lots of cricket is what we've established still going on, which is almost the joy and the death of cricket at the same time with the schedules going on. Rob, Harrison, thank you very much indeed for joining me. It's been great to be back with you. It's been great to have some chaos. It's been great to have Rob ranting. It's been brilliant. Do like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and hopefully, I know I said this last time, but I'm hoping that we will be back with some more very, very soon. So it's goodbye from me for now, and yeah, great to be back.